We'll give you guys a second to get in here. See this number here?
Yep.
There we go.
There's people.
There we go. Yeah, none of you guys are showing. There you go. Finally, finally people are starting to show. I don't think we were getting through properly on the first try. So here we are, the Monday exhibition update for Maine, and we had. I woke this morning at 5 a.m. to pounding rain, and the trailer was shaking from the wind. And then when I got up, actually about an hour later, it was pouring down rain. What's going on? Who's your Bigfoot? Robin H. All you guys. 10x5. Ranjo. Robert N. What's up, Robert N? Robert N's from up here.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Milo. Alexander. Lee. Karen. Good to see you guys. We had like a ton of rain today. It was just wet. And then what time do you think that fog bank rolled in?
It's been in all day long.
It's like unbelievable.
It's been all day long. It's a big fog bank here. We live in a fog bank.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like so foggy that we can't even shoot. Like you can see into the tree line, but the fog is just blanketed, and over top of it, it just cuts all the light out. So you really can't see up into the canopies at all. But we did manage to catch one yesterday.
Yes, we did.
And if you go to the communities tab, after I reviewed the footage last night and then this morning from yesterday's expedition, I found a clip. And there's some really good shots of a Maine Sasquatch on the communities tab here. Yeah, Robert, you've seen them. If you haven't taken the time to visit the communities tab, you're getting live footage updates. As I break it down, we're sharing if we find anything. You know what I mean? So obviously we're going to make a few films when we're done. But so what do we got going on with the new spot? How are we moving forward?
Well, tonight we went out and we set an audio recorder underneath a plastic lid to keep it dry in the location where I spotted Whitey. So we will see if they're out there making noise at nighttime. See, they make generally the same noises everywhere, Oklahoma, Florida. But there are certain things that they don't do. For instance, yours don't whoop, right?
Not at all.
In Oklahoma, they make the whooping noises. So I don't know if it's variation
by region, yeah.
Yeah, but they definitely look like the same species, the same critter.
Yeah.
Bone structure is the same, behavior is the same, but there's just little things that are different.
Yeah.
So we'll find that.
Regionally different. And man, I mean, the sounds that I heard yesterday, the grunting and the little low rumbling kind of, gruff stuff, there's only two things that could have been. It was either one of them or it was a bear.
Either one.
It's kind of strange, Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
But yeah, and it's I mean, we're having a lot of real good luck in the areas and with everything that's been going on. So tomorrow's supposed to be sunny. This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So we should have good video, good picture taking all day long, same spots.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Do you have any idea where we're gonna shoot?
Let's go back to that same spot.
Pick up the audio recorder in the morning, try to shoot some stuff there. And then afternoon, any ideas?
Go to lunch, maybe
pick up some apples.
Maybe go to the Bold Coast. I want to go out and check
Matty Bumps.
Yeah.
Matty Bumps. Sounds good, man.
Location. It's one we haven't hit before, and if we're finding them here, we're going to find them there because there's history there.
Yeah, Matty Bumps has a history from what you were telling me.
Yes.
Yeah. They have a name for him?
The Matty Bumps Howler.
The Matty Bumps Howler. Apparently, there's a big mountain lake up there.
There's a big mountain lake. It's got smaller islands in the center of it. And it's known for its fish. And basically, there's an old story about the Matty Bumps Howler where there was a couple girls in the 50s and their family would leave them on the island while they go fish. They drop the girls off on the island with the campsite, the fire and everything. And they would go fish. And basically when they got back one evening, they had left the girls alone. They came out on the island and the girls were all excited and said two very tall, hairy men had walked up out of the water and took their fish. Walked up out of the water. So basically they said, well, tell me about the men. They said they described them as big, hairy Indians, is what they said, big hairy Indians. And how big they were, well, her father was about 5'6", 5'7", and they said 2 fathers high. That was, of course, a child's description
Right.
of 2 fathers high, but that would be about
8 feet, something like that?
8, 9, 10 feet.
That's huge, right?
Wet and hairy and stole their fish.
So they swam to the island.
Yes.
They would have had to if they came out of the water, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they could swim.
And then how did they leave?
They just walked back in the water and left.
They just walked back and swam off.
Yeah. So that's the story. You can look it up on the internet. It's out there. It's called the Meddy Bimtaler Story of Maine.
Story of Maine. So that's what we're going to investigate tomorrow, and at some point, hopefully. And we've got the audio recorder to pick up. Let's look and see what you guys, if you have any questions about anything, any structures in that area. I haven't found anything concrete yet, and I've been looking. I've been watching the insides of the tree lines. What about you?
Nothing real obvious. There's trees down and broken and busted from the storms everywhere. So, but as far as something intricate and absolutely obvious, very few things in that area. There's nothing that is put together and tied.
Not that we found.
Not that we found.
But then we haven't been pressing in as much because we're kind of feeling our way out. And here we are trying to feel our way out to see if it's a good area. You see one, and that kind of like slows you down a little bit on the whole let's go to the interior thing. But I think that's probably going to be a necessary part. Maybe we got to get in there and see, because I have a strong inclination that there is going to be structures somewhere up in there.
What did you think of the structure along that trail where you caught bone in the face?
Oh well, I mean they're not. They weren't obvious, and I think that's telling, because we were actually in an area where there's a lot of tourism. I mean, there was people hiking everywhere. That's a correlation to Florida. I mean, we caught them. So I think that there, we discussed this. There's a good chance they're digging in that place, because they're there, but again, the bush is so thick here. It's like that in Florida. And in that place we went, there were 20-foot tall walls of ground brush.
Yeah. Not
even the trees, not to mention the trees, but the ground brush. So they could be in it and not have to do anything. I mean, it would be like a question of hollowing out the bush. That's the way they do it in Florida most of the time. I mean, we found structures, but they're few and far between in South Florida because the bush is so thick they don't need to. So, but up here, possibly in certain areas, I'm confident we're going to find a structure before I leave. You know what I mean?
We could press in a little bit farther if you want to.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think probably pressing in. The audio thing I'm real curious about, because we know they're there. I mean, like you saw them then as a corroboration of your actual eyewitness account.
Right. When
we approached the area together, it was obvious hominoid smell. So, I think there's a good chance we're going to get audio. And then if we decide to press in, you may decide, and I leave that up to you, man, whether you want to press in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this is going to be your area, and anything you do has an effect on how they relate to you when you're there. So my thing is like, in the beginning, it was like to establish that they were around in these areas. I really was aggressive about it because I figured, well, they're big, they're large, they're going to respond if they're territorial. And they did. And it ended up being that's what it was, right? So, but at the same time, that hurt our research campaign. And it wasn't until we started to actually bring stuff like apples that they responded in a more, positive. There was a more favorable response. You know what I mean? It wasn't aggressive. And that's when we started to really pick up this footage. With the stuff that we picked up, if you guys go to the communities tab, you're going to see the Sasquatch that I shot yesterday, 200 yards from where Scott had his encounter. They're sitting inside a real dark area in a real damp, dark spot. And there's a couple of them in there, but the one that I'm highlighting on the communities tab, I think is a female. And it's excellent. It's an excellent shot. It's I think 35 seconds. We looked at it today. It's like 35 seconds of these individuals. And of course, I'm freehanding it. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't bring my tripod on the airplane. So, even with the zoom lens that our members picked us up for Crypto Reality, I can get back in those layers. So I hit the first layer of the focal points, right? If the focus wants to grab that outside edge of the tree line. Then I zoom in a little more, and I use my focus to adjust to the second layer in the background. And then to get in there, I was in there probably about 30 feet through a hole that was about this big. and I was probably 30 feet in there. When I hit the third layer, the Sasquatch were sitting there, and you can see that on the communities tab here on the YouTube channel, and it's a pretty cool shot, man. It really is. And I posted a couple of them there. There's some that aren't highlighted, so you can get a look at how naturally blending these things are in the state of Maine. I mean, I'm actually literally calling the green apes of Southeast Maine. I mean, this is like, I'm still waiting to see Whitey. And here's the thing, right? So we discussed this the other day. The polar bear thing that we were comparing our hair samples in Florida to, if you look at what's going on with the polar bear, right, that the animal's white, but it has clear hair. Well, Scott just saw a white Bigfoot. So I'm thinking this thing has the same kind of situation. It more than likely has a lot of extremely translucent or even crystal clear hair like the ones we're getting in Florida. And what we see in Florida is that these things, if you go back and you look at the hair examinations of the clear hair, and I don't remember what episode it is, but it's on YouTube here, what you're going to see is that no matter what I put behind that thing, and I put oak leaves, I put pieces of grass, I put varying degrees of live leaves, dead ones, semi-dead, that kind of thing. I even put a polka dot pad and set the clear hairs on it. They will take on the coloration of the background. So if this guy that appears to be white from a distance in direct sunlight is under the canopy in diffused light, sitting up against a bunch of green bush, I'm confident that it's going to look like a green Sasquatch. And that's exactly what you'll see on the communities tab on Crypto Reality YouTube from yesterday's shoot. That was the afternoon ATV investigation.
Right.
What do you think about that? As far as proceeding forward with your documentation, in that particular spot, with the direct sunlight thing being that you may pick up some white if parts of him is in the sunlight.
Right.
And then what's in the shade, and this is true with all of that hair. When we pull away the light source and we start to move it off, the hair, regardless of its coloration, begins to turn green. So the darker it gets with this species hair, the more green there is. So, I mean, I'm assuming that that's probably what you're going to see if you see him through the lens.
Yeah. And now I'm more prepared. I honestly think if that would have been a brown or black Sasquatch, I may have had a chance to get a shot at it. But the fact that it was entirely white just shocked me, and I wasn't ready for it.
No.
And
well, you thought it was me. I mean,
I thought it was you. Yeah,
I could see why you weren't filming it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
so
like, oh, there's Mark. Yeah.
So anyway, so now I know that they're not all black. So if I see another white one through the trees, I won't be thinking in my head, well, that's a rock or that's a bucket somebody's thrown down out there. I'll be looking for the white or the green, and it's deep back in. But let me tell you something. When it stepped out of the wood line, and when you're looking for these, this is something that Sasquatch do not do. They do not step out into the open.
No.
Unless they do.
A couple times I've seen it, but and I think it was because they wanted me to see them.
Yeah. So he stepped out, and when he stepped out of that brush, he was like Peter Rabbit white. There's no yellow, no coyote brown. This guy was white.
Snow white.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he saw me and turned to walk back in there.
Yeah.
And then he disappeared. So a white thing, totally white, totally visible, walks into the wood line and disappears.
And vanishes.
And I don't want to hear anything about portals because this isn't a portal. This guy went and camouflaged.
Yeah, he just walked in and sat down, and as a direct result of the diffusion, he just, as he blends into that environment, he moves into that environment, he just starts to turn green.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like evident in the hair studies we have. So if you're wondering how we're accomplishing this and getting them on film, there are some very simple techniques, right? And that's how we're doing it. What we know from the hair samples tells us about what to look for so that we can catch them on film. I have been shooting at things that I see and zooming in, and I'm seeing what appear to be Sasquatch in some of this footage I'm shooting. I must have shot probably 500 to 550 clips since I've been here, and 548 of them probably have nothing in them. It's those key spots that they're in. You know what I mean? And there may be more because I haven't examined it all, but it's just incredible that it's the spot that you cited one in that we're actually catching them on film. So we have a lot of corroboration going on, and that's fabulous, man. I mean, this is best case scenario for establishing a research area.
Yes. And basically, I gotta be honest. I was overwhelmed when I started looking for them here in the state of Maine because of the vastness of the spaces and the vastness of the territory. Literally, any little creek was perfect Sasquatch habitat. But the techniques that you're bringing to the table are the ability, to pick out the holes, to pick out the temperature variations, and to zoom in on those, and that's where we're getting the results.
And also the other key factor with why they like the darkness we talked about.
Yeah, because it's cooler.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is with the sensitivity factor.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few things that are contributing to this, and we're trying to use it all. And so far it's working out. So let's take some questions, Scott, and I'm sure somebody's got some questions for you, right? Okay, Still Smoking has a question for us, but I'm going to go up a little farther and just try to see if there's anything before that. Okay, there's nothing. So the first question is, and thank you for all your compliments and checking out the communities tab and all that stuff. How are you able to capture these things on camera so often? Okay, well, first of all, we're doing it. We're actually doing it, right? We're going out, and that's the whole thing, right? Like, you can't actually catch something on film unless you're out there and you're actually doing it. You'd have never had your encounter if we weren't there.
Right.
This is how it goes, right? So, and the thing is when you go in the bush and you start to look into an area, even if there are no Sasquatch there, there's information that you can document that later on will help explain why there are no Sasquatch in these areas. In most of the areas, there probably are none, right? But there are a lot of areas, apparently, in this particular area in this region of Maine. And so every time you go in the field, you're collecting data and you're shooting footage. And in Florida, that's how we started to build our foundation for the theories that we were trying to actually engage in experimentation off of, right? So I saw something one day and it looked like a green Bigfoot. It didn't make any sense to me. I thought Bigfoot, there's no way. There's no such thing as a green Bigfoot. It looked like the Incredible Hulk. I didn't believe it. And yet I said, Melanie, are you seeing this? And I looked back and the bushes were moving. Okay. And she said, what? And I was like, nothing, never mind. And that happened to me a couple times. And then I started to see him through the lens, and I started to recognize what was going on. Well, I didn't think there was anything like that. So I started to look up light and color, and that led me to certain discoveries about diffusion and the achromatic color spectrum. And so we've added on to that over the years, combining that with the data on nocturnal creatures and certain aspects of their existence, right? There's a whole bunch of different factors that go into this, but the bottom line is temperature variation, light levels, the actual prey, and all that kind of stuff. The locations where there are sightings there that have a history. Once that happens, it's just a question of going in and putting all of it into one shot in the right spot. And it takes hundreds of times to just get one. But if you don't go that route, you can't iron out where they're not. And that's a key factor in finding out where they are. So the experimentation process inevitably leads to correct data if you continue doing it, but you got to do it.
They're so good at avoiding us visually and camouflaging themselves. So we've learned this is what, 8 years each of trial and error to get these things down pat. But don't ignore your hearing either, because they do make noise. They do make noise. You can hear them. It's very subtle. You won't hear them going tromp, tromp, tromp through the leaves, but what you will hear is a stick break.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot that makes stick breaks, and other things that do make stick breaks, you'll hear other things like they're deer or they're moose or they're moving through the trees. But these things are very subtle, but you will hear them. So when you hear them in a certain direction, you kind of focus on the dark areas and the temperature variation areas. You focus on those because you might catch them. And then once you start learning to see them visually, the audience, the people listening tonight, are once you learn to pick them out in footage and your photographs, you'll understand. It's very subtle, but they're there.
Yeah, they're and it's not always that, because situations change, but 99% of the time that's what it is. It's just them doing what they do, which is most of the time sitting on their ass. And also it depends on what part of the group you're getting. If it's, there seems to be that there's like a body of, or the main body of the group of these things is together, sitting still, And then oftentimes you don't see what would represent a really big male in these areas, which, over time with hundreds of clips that, you're shooting and all these hundreds of expeditions, you start to learn that you're catching the males outside the area where the game is actually running, because it seems to be patterning that there are very few other game species hanging out in these areas that Sasquatch hang out in. And we're corroborating that here. The game is prolific here, but not in the areas where we're filming these things. I mean, I still haven't seen a deer. We've been in the mountains and in the forest here now for 4 days straight. I know there's a moose, and I've seen a couple deer tracks.
Yeah, they're there,
but it's like in these areas where, especially now where you had a sighting, I still haven't seen a deer, man. I haven't seen any kind of like little rodents or anything like that. We saw some turkeys today, and Scott had a close call there right above him.
I might have peed on myself a little. Because they were like right over my head, and they took off in all directions. It kind of scared me. But,
yeah.
But they're out there. There's not a lot of game in these areas. They're eating the Sasquatch.
I think so.
Well,
I think they're chewing that stuff up. So, okay, let's see. And really, so what does it come down to? Hard work. That's how we're getting them. Today was an easy day, and we had one expedition.
Yeah.
But for the most part, when Scott comes into town in Florida, we do 3 expeditions in 24 hours. We're getting very little sleep to capitalize on the amount of time he's in town. Now that I'm up here in Maine, we've been doing 2 to 3 expeditions a day, every day. So about 6.5, 7 hours of expedition, sometimes 8 hours, depending on if we go at night again with the fog, So it really is just a question of doing it a lot. You know what I mean? So last Bigfoot you seen, how big do you think that white one was?
I was too far away to be able to tell how big he was. He was big enough for me to recognize the shoulders and the shapes and the head, and that it was upright walking kind of Bigfoot. So I honestly don't know whether it was a 5-foot one or a 9-foot one. So I can't honestly tell you. It's like, when you get older, your vision starts to go. So think of it this way. A lot of times if I'm in a Walmart or a grocery store and I look down the aisle and I'm looking for my wife, and I see her, I can see her. It's the shape of my wife, the color of her hair, what she's wearing, but I cannot see the features of her face.
I got it.
It was the same situation. So I could honestly have no idea how big that thing was. It would have helped if we could find a track, but where he crossed it, just the ground didn't take a track. A lot of times you'll have granite and hard ground covered by a thin layer of moss.
There were pebbles. That place has a lot of P-rock in it.
Yeah, so I wish I could tell you how big it was, but I wouldn't even venture a guess at this point.
Yeah. And I know mine, the ones I've seen them all the way from 4 feet to probably close to 8 feet or maybe a little over 8 feet. Several different ones in the last 5 years researching, Okay, so let's see if there are any rock throwing. I haven't had any that I've noticed anyway. Actually, when we were driving back, something hit the razor, but it scared the shit out of me from the side, I thought, because it was on the right side. But then I thought maybe it came off your tire because on the road. Yeah. So I don't know. But nothing's throwing rocks at us yet.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And that could be regional variation. I don't know if they're throwing rocks here yet or not. If they do, then I'm looking for it because they've thrown rocks at me in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And they've tossed rocks at you in Florida several times. But I haven't had it happen
here yet. Too. Yeah.
And again, it's odd to me that they don't whoop in Florida.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard any noises here other than which we don't even know if that was a bear or Sasquatch yet.
Yeah, no, we've heard all kinds of audio in Florida, but it's been screaming. There's been some chimp sounds too. That's for sure. I mean, it's not a chimp. It sounds more. It's like if you had to compare it to something, you could compare it to a chimp, but it's not. It's like the kind of sound, like that. But it's mostly growling and sounds like really big men shouting. You know what I mean? Which is disturbing. When you hear that stuff, they jabber on sometimes, and a lot of people have heard that in our areas. So we got no rocks. Right, James. Gotcha. Are you able to share any video of your charge and getting hit with the log? Oh, yeah, man. All that footage has been out for like almost 5 years, Julie. It's on cryptoreality.us on the members website, and it may be in a segment of it, may be in a film in the last 6 months, probably here on YouTube. You just have to go back through our videos. Hey, Doc's in. What's up, Doc? What are you doing, man? We're up in Maine, buddy.
It's good to meet you.
He's like, what the hell is going on? Hey, Dr. Lester, Dr. William Lester's in here with us. That's a good thing, Doc. We're having a great expedition up here. Doc, you got to go to the communities tab on my homepage. If you go to that tab, if you're on your laptop, go to the homepage, click on community, and check out these Sasquatch that we're catching up here in Maine. It's unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Let's see what else we got. Oh, yeah, Lee, there's definitely a few others in that, but I like to take the most obvious subject and stick to it and make it real simple. You know what I mean? It's hard enough for, a lot of people to kind of even grasp the one that I'm highlighting. So, but I like to keep it simple like that. I realize there are definitely other ones. Scott and I looked at that in depth this morning, and we were seeing all kinds of stuff in there. But if you look at the one, it's painfully obvious. And I'm not unsure that there's not two of them sitting together and you're getting partial face of the one that's kind of sideways. It's almost like there's one from the side and it kind of like bleeds into the one that's sitting there. It's possible, or it could just be one, but it does seem to look like there might be two there.
Yeah, let me say something about that. Mark holds a certain standard as far as what he puts out of the things, the Sasquatch that we get on film. They have to be a certain amount of good. You got to have the eyes and all that stuff.
Frames, man. Frames.
You got to see multiple frames of movement. So what you're seeing in the background, those little multiple monkeys, are an indicator of the stuff that Mark sees that he wouldn't normally put out. So it's hard to avoid because they get in clusters and they hold each other. They get in a big Sasquatch.
Very social.
And so, yes, there are other monkeys in those films. You just keep looking, you'll see a bunch of them. And they're not afraid to get next to each other and hold each other. They cover each other's faces. They turn their heads. Oddly enough, I've got several videos where they will look up. So they'll be facing you and their eyeballs will be rolled up looking at the sky. So I don't know if they've got a thing about looking directly at people and they think that they can still see where you're at by looking up, maybe.
I don't know.
But I've got them there, like looking up like this.
Yeah.
Looking directly at the camera.
Yeah, and you also got to understand that what we're filming is a situation that's happening in real time. And not all of them are going to be focused on what we're doing. And that's another telling factor. Like, it's not all the time that they're looking at us. Like in this particular series of shots that's on the community tab, you can see that this thing is changing its perspective throughout the entire thing. That's like real time, There's other ones in there too. You're going to get profiles. You're going to get all kinds of stuff because they're sitting in there together. They're social creatures. That's what it is, So let's take another question. Have you done any gifting? That'll begin soon. Let's see. Julie Stewart, I'm not avoiding your question. Hang on a second. Let me find it, Julie. Trying to see Julie's question. I don't see it. Are you able to share video? I think I answered that, right? Yeah, I did. Okay. I'm going with Esau on that. Okay. And literally that's a confused translation. So in the end, it's like, you'd need a copy of the original Hebrew Torah and you'd need a copy of the Epic of Gilgamesh to actually realize the truth in that whole thing, and access to all the apocryphal books and probably a copy of the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, to actually begin to put together the pieces of what species it was back then. You know what I mean? So, okay, let's see what else we have. Scott, do you live in Maine? What prompted you to research that area in particular?
I do live in Maine. I've lived in Maine for quite a while. I just recently moved back. So, and to be honest with you, I've gone to where the Sasquatch, in my search for the Sasquatch, I've gone to where they are. So I would fly back and forth to Oklahoma, and then I met Mark, so I started going down there in Florida area and searching in Florida, but I was never able to pin them down in Maine because I was simply overwhelmed by the vast amount of habitat here. They could be anywhere, so I needed Mark's help to nail them down. because that's one of Mark's superpowers. I mean, he can find them and he can see them in the videos, and that is something that is only comes with experience. So Mark is up here, we're narrowing it down, and obviously we're doing a really good job of it.
You saw one.
I saw one. Yeah, and that doesn't happen. I was not expecting that, and when it did happen, it just kind of rocked my
Best
world.
case scenario. Best case scenario. All right, so let's take another question. Let's see here. I gotta try to get this to work a little better. It's not. Okay, there we go. Do you think Bigfoot hang out in trees in that area?
Yes,
I think so too.
I've got theories about that. I think that they're very social. They move in packs and tribes, and I believe this is from observations in Oklahoma where I've caught them in trees. I think that they put the little monkeys on the perimeter, watching the group of monkeys, and so yes, I do think they hide in trees.
Up in them. I'm waiting to document one, but I have been watching.
I've got pictures of them in trees, little ones, not big ones.
Yeah, I have them in trees, but it's not like they're 60 feet up. It's more like 20 feet off the ground, something. And they're smaller monkeys too. They're smaller Bigfoot. I've been watching the trees here. I haven't seen anything yet.
Look for hollow trees. The tree that I caught this one little guy that in Oklahoma, every time I would go up, I would see this little guy because he would come running to the four-wheelers. So the tree that I caught him in was hollow inside. So, and he was sitting up in the crook, in the crawl where the branches split. It was probably 20, 25 feet off the ground.
Yeah. So we're waiting to see him here, but I think that's eventually going to be documented. So let's see what else we got. That's right, Doc. Day after day, follow the trails, pay attention to what's going on. That's right. What's up, B? That dude in the pic on the community tab, man, he looks hacked off. Looks like the Punisher's skull.
Yes, that's what Mark said.
That's what I said. I said it looks like one of my Punisher shirts, man.
The teeth in the Punisher are his hands. He's got
he's got like fingers up
like
there.
He's giving you the hang loose symbol. He's got his hands like that. And the two knuckles are right here below his nose. And one of the things that I see in video is that their eyes will reflect in the daytime and look like white milky dots. Their fingernails will do the same. So there's a fingernail off to the side there like that. I don't know whether it's his pinky or his thumb, but yeah, he's a Punisher-looking thing, especially when you look at the
scary looking
around those eyes.
Yeah, that's goggles.
Yeah, it looks like combat goggles. Well,
Dallas says, I'd like to see y'all's reaction if a Bigfoot hit or slapped the trailer right now.
Yeah, we'd probably have to edit that out.
Right? Interactions or territorial displays. Just the sighting, which was an interaction, and it seemed like the thing was actually posturing or something, man. There's no reason for that thing to come out of the tree line. It's not like they're not aware of what's going on. There's a four-wheeler like 100 yards away or something, so.
Yeah. He wasn't afraid of him. He did not run. He did not book it he just turned around and walked. He kind of had his stride going on there and just walked on in there. Like, he dared me to follow him in there. But
that sounds like it, right? Do you think they're nomadic in your area? This is Robert W.
No, I do not.
I don't either. I don't think so.
They stay in the same spots.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough of them that they may appear nomadic. If you have one person spotting them in one city and another person spotting them 2 weeks later in another city, people say those are nomadic. It's not. It's separate groups. They stay in the same location unless they're driven away by food or some other need.
Yeah. Hey, Bama Bigfoot's in here. Welcome.
Hey, Bama BF.
How you doing? Everybody, thanks for coming. We're not going to stay on too much longer. We're going to actually go get some dinner, and we're going to start looking at footage and see what happened today. It was kind of a limited expedition, but like we said, tomorrow is going to be supposed to be a nice day. So I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to a special place tomorrow, in addition to going and picking up the audio recorder. So do you have anything else you want to add?
Bama BF, I'm a fan of your work. You've got animals in your backyard. There's no doubt about it. I've seen plenty of them. You're very honest. You're very good. I understand there was a fairly popular internet gentleman critiquing your work. Don't listen to a thing that guy says. Everybody who's a legitimate researcher has been criticized by that particular gentleman. So keep doing what you're doing and showing us
That's the thing to remember, right? It's a study, right? I mean, this is how you learn, trial and error. You know what I mean? And as you go along, you learn more. You know, so thanks for bringing us with you. You know, that's what we do. You know, we take you guys with us. We take you for the ride. You know, it's unfortunate some people have a difficult time interacting with others in a way that's positive and actually contributing to the situation without, you know, that obvious, you know, difficulty. So, but it is what it is. So, all right, that's the update for Monday night for Crypto Reality Florida, and
Crypto Reality Maine.
we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Look for more update photos from breakdowns in the next couple hours on the communities tab, because as I pull things, I'm going to share them there. So get used to that communities tab. If you have any questions about the pictures or anything else, you can always go to the communities tab and go on one of the pictures and start asking questions. I check that 3-4 times a night. 3-4 times a night. Don't okay that. Still smoking. That's not getting okayed. I'm actually going to hide that comment. Come on now. We don't do that. We got to keep it nice. You leave the nastiness to Mark.
That's awesome.